in a simple phrase, it's an interesting time in the insurance world. There's a lot of what I would call the old school approach that's still happening, meaning that insurance companies, like every business, want to be profitable. So they're still staying very aggressive in the profitable areas and trying to write as much business as possible in those areas. Another one of the old school approaches that are often used by insurance companies would be to take areas under distress and either exit the market or increase their pricing or potentially change their terms and conditions with those that they're going to keep as their insureds. And there's certainly some of that happening as well. The challenge that a lot of folks face is that they're often not kept apprised of what's happening around them, or if they're in whatever area they are, be it an area of profit for the insurance industry or an area of challenge. So it makes it very interesting because a lot of things happen without a lot of advance notice to what it might be. There are definitely some areas that I think if you're reading the news or paying attention to what's happening around you, you know that they're challenging. Property insurance in particular is one, and that used to be really segregated to areas that geographically you would go, oh, of course, that's coastal and hurricanes are going to be a problem. But as you watch the other areas of property loss occur, you have seen that the seasons have gotten longer. So tornado season used to simply be somewhere in the early spring through the early summer months. Now we're seeing at the tail end of the year, tornado and convective storm activity. I mentioned hurricanes. We've watched the path of hurricanes take very interesting turns. Hurricane Helene last year is a great example of that. That area that was impacted, which was the western part of Georgia and South Carolina and North Carolina, is one that within a 150-year window has seen that type of activity before, but certainly it's not very common. And if you're paying any attention to the news as well about wildfires, right now they are impacting Canada, but it used to be very simple to say the western states were going to be the states that would have wildfire activity. But basically, if you look at a map of current wildfires in the United States, you're going to see that they're everywhere. So property is definitely a challenge for folks. And some that are not in those areas that would be coastal or in Tornado Alley, they're not recognizing that they're also seeing the impact of some of these things. Switching away from property for a second, there certainly are areas of liability that have taken a turn for the worst and are very challenging. If you look at folks that have large automobile fleets, we are finding that litigation, and then folks are involved in an accident and a fault, is exploding in the insurance world. They would call that a nuclear situation. And when the verdict goes against the insured or the plaintiff is taking action, it's a nuclear verdict. And things that seem simple and small are blowing into $1 million, $10 million, $20 million claims. And it's a challenge to be in those situations. So liability is certainly creating a bit of a problem. And then the final one that really stands out would be cyber security. They say it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when your organization is going to be impacted by some sort of a security breach. And while we've been writing cyber insurance since the early 2000s, the last couple of, and we've seen a lot of claims in that time frame, it's the last couple of months that we've really seen a spike in cyber incidents impacting the telecommunications world. We all heard about Salt Typhoon around the elections. That was certainly part of the story, but there's many more layers to it that involved not only telecommunications companies, but national security, as well as the desire of foreign adversaries to get into our military bases and learn some information about what's happening there. So all those areas are challenging, and it makes for a very interesting time. for insurers to know what to predict when they're coming up to their renewal, or if they're shopping as a new entity for insurance for the first time. And I think everybody's looking for some level of predictability. So it's a bit of a challenge for sure. On any given day, any one of them could be involved in something that would catch your attention. Again, I've seen very simple automobile accidents turn into an attorney making a demand for $10 million. And when you look at the components of the incident, certainly the insured was at fault, but it truly was an accident. It wasn't an intentional, malicious situation, but the demands and sometimes the verdicts or even the settlements are coming in at levels that you would think that the person intentionally did the harm. So on any given day, we can have an auto accident that makes us stop and look at that and say, wow, that's the biggest challenge that we're facing right now. We're just rolling into hurricane season. So while for our insureds, the tornado time and season has gone reasonably well, we're now looking at the next challenge that we're going to face, which is going to be hurricanes, and what path and what type of level of activity are we going to have with that. So that always is there, and it can be hurricanes as we're rolling in that season, coming out of tornado season, and also it can be any wildfire that starts at any point in time. And then finally, the cyber, again, it seems like there's more and more incidents all the time, and we went from a cycle of a lot of mistakes that would occur when somebody was phished or they got an email and they clicked on a link, to now we are seeing more incidents where they're at the severe level, meaning that a network has been hacked, and because of that, there's a ransom that's associated with the incident. And when we talk about that, the dollar amount that is involved in the claim escalates. And the biggest thing, though, to an insured is really their reputation. I mean, I don't like the fact that many insureds think, okay, well, that happened, but I've got an insurance policy that'll cover the majority of that. And that is the mentality of some. But what they don't know, that even though their insurance is going to pick that up, there's reputational harm being done. It was their business that was there to protect their customers' information. And when that ransom happened, whether they paid it or not, that information was breached and in the hands of an unauthorized user. And that certainly creates a challenge. So all of these areas are really, really challenging for folks. And really the only way to protect yourself against these things as a consumer or as a buyer is to be with the best of the best. Be with an organization that can help you, first of all, to understand the risks so that you're not surprised. And when I say surprise, it's not the good kind of surprise, it's the really negative ones that, wow, I didn't see that one coming, and it's not a good situation for my business. But the best will also do one other thing for you. Not only will it keep you informed, and knowledge is certainly power, but they'll also present you best to the marketplace, meaning that should you be in an area of geographic concern for a property insurer, they'll take the attributes and things that you've done to minimize risk and present those to the insurance world. If you're in the auto arena where you've got a large fleet, they'll work with you on the areas that you need to focus in on to make sure that you don't become a target for the plaintiff's attorneys if you are involved in a fault accident and going to be legally liable. And then finally, the insurance world will never ever replace a good IT company or vendor or support staff that you might have. But certainly the insurance world on the cyber side interacts a lot more with vendors than it does on any other of the product lines. And it becomes really important that to be with a good insurance provider that will get you to a position that you understand that they vetted the forensics team and also the breach coach, that should an incident occur to you, that you are going to be in the best hands versus, oh my goodness, it just happened to us. Who do we use? Who do we call? doing that prep work ahead of time leads you to the best outcome. So while all these things are challenging, there are ways to mitigate the risk, both in presentation of who your business is and also in the preparation that goes along with it.